That's right, Camilla. I've been working on this story for 3 months now, and I've spoken to dozens of families who tell me their loved ones died due to neglect in nursing homes like this one back behind me here. That's right, Ryan. What we know so far is 2 people were shot here at the Kermit's Hot Dog House just a couple hours ago, so it's still a very active scene. In fact, I'm going to step aside so you guys can see what's going on behind me. There's a large police presence in this area, and the door to this restaurant is completely shattered. Making sure essential foods and drinks were on the shelves are getting a shot at the vaccine. Gas prices vary across the Triad. In fact, here in Asheboro, just even down the street, gas is looking at $2.99 per gallon. Here at this one, $3.40. But the state average right now is a little bit closer to $3 per gallon. So if you're seeing prices that are outrageously higher than that, you're asked to report it. So far, many people have. When it comes to the immunity law, that could be changed if you were to end the emergency order. Have you thought about doing that?
It's no longer safe for their people to be working on it, and they're actually evacuating people as we speak.
A park ranger came to her rescue to try to give her CPR, but unfortunately she didn't make it, making her the first death we've seen here in the park in more than a decade. The robot can now be the eyes, ears, and even the voice for law enforcement going into dangerous situations, while officers keep safe further than just an arm's distance. Well, right behind the line next to the visitor center, you can see back behind me here, trees burnt to a crisp, charred, ash, smoke coming from the ground, and even a fire popping up in that corner there, and also crushing cars like this one here. Just some of the damage we're finding today. Governor Cooper is sure to veto the bill if it comes to his desk. Republicans are wanting to put the issue to the voters. That's why school leaders are meeting here right behind me tonight to discuss whether they'll be masking back up in the classroom. Well, what we know so far is that we're seeing a 36-hour window of risk for a possible explosion with the amount of ammonium nitrate in this plant back behind me here. So far, we're at hour 20. In fact, there's at least 1 shooting per week here in Winston-Salem this year, and already 2 deaths. And this mom is scared more babies will be hit by bullets.
I said she's special, that's all.
8-month-old Jaya McMahon was sound asleep when she was caught in the crossfire.
Deliberately stood across there and shot into this room.
With a bullet striking Jade Green's baby in her crib.
So the top one is the one where it went through, the bottom is where the tube was placed.
Oh, wow.
And then it came out through her back.
The mother of 4 left the house to run an errand while her mother was watching the kids. Minutes later, multiple bullets were fired into their apartment on Echo Glen Drive.
Right there, that's one right there. One went into the door and another one went here. The actual bullet in the toy box.
While Grandma was on the phone with 911, it was Jaya's 11-year-old sister's fast thinking that kept her alive.
Once the ambulance came, she passed off and said, "Save my sister."
And now that little Jaya is doing okay,
Well, nothing stops me.
her family is already packing up to move again after they moved to this apartment only a few months ago.
We can't stay here at all because my kids are terrified to sleep in their room. So
they're looking for a new place to stay, a difficult task during this pandemic.
my kids should be able to have comfortability in their own home in some type of peace.
But until then, Green says her and her family are counting their blessings. Jaya or any of her other siblings aren't just a number.
This could have ended a lot worse, and it could have been, like you said, just another homicide story where I'm burying my child this week. And for me that's not the case, and me to be able to say I'm planning a birthday, her first birthday, that's awesome.
To combat shootings in Winston-Salem, the Winston-Salem Police Department has created 2 units specializing in gun violence and shooting investigations, and say they believe that's why the homicides are going down each year. Reporting in studio, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News.
It has been nearly a year since the pandemic forced schools to shut down, putting more children online, oftentimes unsupervised, and new numbers show skyrocketing rates of cybercrimes, and it's not just a national problem. ABC 45's Cassie Schirm shows us how it's happening right here in the Triad.
The click of a mouse, a brief introduction.
And Instagram, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, TikTok, they just send a private message, saying, hey, that was a great video you shared, and just to try and get the conversation started.
Just how hard is it for internet predators to get access to kids? According to North Carolina undercover agents, it's not hard at all.
In our undercover activity, we take on various personas and we go into the spaces where we believe students are at most of the time and where they're being approached online.
A simple conversation, some turning too graphic to share.
To get to that point of where, hey, let's meet up, or can I come get you, or meet me over here.
If that person did show up after a sexual conversation, that could be considered attempted rape of a minor. The conversation itself could result in a charge of communication with the minor for immoral purposes.
We have seen a huge increase.
Special Agent Kevin Rotten sees the problem firsthand in the workload of the state's Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force.
We're seeing it every other week, it seems like. There have been numerous cases recently with minors that were taken to various states.
National rates of online enticement of children has nearly doubled from a little over 15,000 reports in 2019 to 30,000 in 2020. But in our state, the numbers are alarming.
We went from a couple of years ago getting 3,000 tips a year, and last year we received over 9,000.
Undercover detectives is just one of the tools ICAC uses to trap child predators. Another tool for work?
All right, there we go.
This girl right here.
Right here.
More specifically, Rita's nose.
She is quintessentially a flashlight for us to be able to find what we need to find that's hidden, that we can't see.
She helps find SD cards and other storage devices that can contain child sexual abuse material. And according to her handler, Special Agent Nathan Anderson, she's pretty good at it. So he put her nose to the test. In less than a minute, she finds a micro SD card taped under a ledge.
Good girl. The chemical is found in the fire retardant on the little circuit boards of the devices, so that way it can help it from catching fire.
A scent she's been on the hunt for a lot lately.
We've been working, we haven't stopped, and we are out there to investigate these crimes and save children.
But protecting kids, North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein says starts at home.
You want to monitor your kids' internet usage, know what websites they're visiting. You want to teach them about the risks. The risks that exist in the real world also exist online. There are bad people who will try to exploit them.
A sobering reminder that when there's an app or a keyboard, an online predator is likely there. Reporting in Winston-Salem, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News. That's right. The Alamance County Sheriff's Office says they're taking proactive measures for the community and their officers, so an incident like that never happens here. And I do want to warn you guys, the video of this incident is disturbing.
When Brooklyn Center, Minnesota police officer Kim Potter allegedly mistook her service weapon for a stun gun and fatally shot Dante Wright, it was at least the 16th such weapon confusion incident in the United States since 2001.
It looks like a gun. It looks like a gun.
But Alamance Deputy Sheriff Mark Johnson says there's a big difference just holding it.
The biggest difference in this is going to be the weight of a taser versus a firearm. It's a whole lot different. So you say taser, taser, taser.
And that's why, as a taser trainer for the force, he says training and policy is key.
Okay.
Taser, taser, taser.
Stuff gets real on the street, you should automatically revert back to your training, and you want to do it the right way. Our policy here at the Sheriff's Office, we require the officer to wear the taser on the opposite side of the firearm. Okay? That way, if it does, and you reach for your taser, you know it's not on the same side.
Now, after the Minnesota incident, they're taking things a step further by adding bright yellow tape to all the tasers while they wait for new yellow tasers to come in.
We do care, we are concerned, and we do listen. So if they're ever out or they riding by and they have an officer or all our officers have their taser drawn for whatever reason, that they can see it's yellow or it's got yellow tape, well, they know that's a taser. We're trying to get ahead of the curve to make sure we don't have anything happening here in Alamance County that's happening somewhere else.
On top of that, the department also requires all officers to do a yearly 8-hour taser training and go through the experience of being tased to have a better understanding in high-stress situations. In studio, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News.
As North Carolina reaches over 1.2 million first doses of COVID-19 vaccine distributions, new data is showing racial disparities in who is getting the shot and who is not. ABC 45's Cassie Schirm is in studio tonight with more on how the state and the community are tackling this issue right now. Cassie.
As of today, only 15% of the vaccines in North Carolina have gone to African Americans, 77% to white. It's a percentage that had an even larger gap just last week. That's why the state is partnering with local community leaders to get more shots in arms.
3, 2, 1.
Well, good morning, St. Peter's Church in Woodbury Center.
During this pandemic, Bishop James C. Hash's service looks a little different.
On Sundays, I used to preach for the good-sized congregation, but Sunday I'm preaching to cameras, empty seats.
Keeping his congregation safe from the virus, but still delivering a message that he says is vital.
To give them a word of encouragement that even in all that is going on in our world today, we still have to trust God.
Giving life to the word while also encouraging others to protect their life with the vaccine.
I believe personally that faith and science is working together to give people life.
An important role, Bishop Hash says, for a community that's still hesitant.
Usually in the black community, when there's problems, people run to the church. People fear what they don't know. So it is my responsibility as a pastor to let my people know that you can trust the medical profession.
When looking at the data, the vaccination for the state shows nearly 200,000 black North Carolinians have gotten a shot, compared to a little more than 1 million white North Carolinians.
The pandemic didn't create disparities, but it has certainly shined a spotlight on them.
Deputy Secretary Susan Gale Perry says that's why the state has put so much focus on closing that gap.
We made a commitment to equity, embedding it in every aspect of our COVID-19 response.
Now, comparing to other states, North Carolina was one of the first states to show the vaccine percentage allocations when it comes to race. Why did the state do that?
Yeah, we're really proud. We were one of only 3 states in the country that came out first with a dashboard that included race at all at the state level, the first state in the country to do so at the county level, because it was really important to us that we both used our data to lead the way we were administering and distributing vaccines and earn the trust of North Carolinians.
They've been allocating vaccines to marginalized communities, working with church leaders and hospitals for outreach, and even hosting vaccine clinics on church grounds.
All done.
Giving more access for a shot.
I've done number 1.
And a step closer than 6 feet apart.
Excellent.
Hopefully that'll give us an opportunity where we can come together again as family members, friends, and community.
Finding hope in the vaccine.
Giving people hope for the future. Simple as that. Everybody wants to live, so therefore take advantage of the opportunity that has come to keep us all living.
So one day people can come together safely.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. We love you, St. Peter's. We miss you guys. The best days are before us, for the day is the best day of our life.
Now, Forsyth County is among the leading North Carolina counties in the number of residents vaccinated and is making progress towards the goal of having more than 40% COVID-19 vaccinated individuals be members of historically marginalized populations, which is proportionate to the demographics of the county, but right now they sit at 17%. In studio, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News.
Cassie, thank you. Jonathan, thank you. No masks mandated for many in North Carolina, but what about places where young children often play and learn? ABC 45's Cassie Schirm joining us live from the Science Center in Greensboro. Cassie, what are parents telling you tonight?
That's right, Camille. Now, some parents tell me they're okay with the changes, while others say they're concerned for their child's safety. Now, here at the Greensboro Science Center, they're one of many businesses here in the Triad that are no longer requiring masks before walking through the doors. And some parents tell me it's causing a lot of problems and concerns.
Weather's been beautiful, the animals have been active, and guests are coming out and thoroughly enjoying it.
Erica Brown with the Greensboro Science Center says one change guests can expect is no more masks.
It's a science-based organization. We're really looking at the science behind the decisions that the CDC and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services have made. So we're going by the guidelines they've set forth based on the data they've seen.
Some parents are for the change.
I love it. I mean, you can see people's faces and recognize them.
You know,
we make sure we just keep our distance from people.
While others say this move will stop them from going back for a while.
We were like, oh, that's really disappointing that this is, one less place where we can feel safe taking our kids now.
Jessie Spence got her membership for the Science Center for her 5-year-old daughter, Autumn.
My daughter loves the Science Center, and they are a great resource for our community.
But after she got the email about the changes, she asked for a refund.
The reality is that some kids do get sick. Some kids do have symptoms. If they don't have symptoms, they can spread it to other kids or to other adults who aren't yet vaccinated.
And for 3rd grade teacher Alyssa Brannon, she's against the change. Her and her students have been wearing masks since coming back to school.
They're so happy to be back. So they're wearing their masks without any arguments. I don't understand what the big deal is for just a little while longer. We've been doing it this long. A few more months to me is not going to make that big of a difference.
Her big concern, her 20-month-old grandson.
People who aren't vaccinated may think, okay, I'm going to take my mask off anyway. And that's where the risk lies. Not necessarily for me, but for the children, especially my grandson.
But the Science Center is still doing cleaning measures and says they have the space to social distance, but it's up to the parents.
It's the point that we're at in this pandemic. You have to decide what's best for you and for your family. The zoo part is outside. And so if you aren't comfortable being around folks who may or may not have their masks on, you can absolutely go outside. There's plenty of room to spread out and walk around and find a spot you feel comfortable.
Now, Novant health doctors say they're hoping to have a vaccine for kids 11 years old and under by the end of summer. But they say until then, it's important to keep your kids masked up to help stop the spread. Reporting here in Greensboro, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News. It all started here on Bruce Street, where a man was shot and killed in this front yard here, making him the 16th person killed in Winston-Salem just this year. Now, unfortunately, this was just the beginning of a weekend filled with gunshots and heartache.
I never imagined getting a phone call and one of my children were dead.
For Tanya Mabe, this violence is a mother's worst nightmare as her 22-year-old son, Tristan Gadberry, was shot in the front yard.
This is really tearing me apart. My heart is so broken. I feel empty and lost. I feel like a part of me's been taken.
The next day, just a few miles down the road on East Devonshire Street, 4 people were shot and 1 killed. Later that evening on Swain Woods Lane, another person shot and killed, something that isn't surprising to neighbors.
There's too many kids dying for nothing. Too much gang violence going on out here. The gang violence needs to be brought down and took away.
And making some feel unsafe in their own homes.
Scared. I'm ready to run. It's not fair to the ones that's not involved in all that.
A crime that has Winston-Salem police working around the clock.
I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of the killings in this community.
Are you guys going to be adding more patrol to that area?
We'd already had an extra patrol in that area. As a matter of fact, our officers heard the gunshots at 844 Devonshire and responded immediately. They were there as people were still kind of fleeing the scene. It was very chaotic for them. We were already working this area day in, day out.
Police say they're doing what they can, but it goes 2 ways, as more than 100 people saw one of the murders this weekend and not one person has come forward with any information.
Spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to help the community. Now we need your help. I plead for that. We can't solve these crimes without your help. This no snitching, this street crap needs to go to the wayside. This is your friends. This is your family that's been murdered.
The victim's family is also joining in on the plea, begging for people to come forward and stop the violence.
People put your guns down because kids are losing their life. Young kids. I mean, come on. This has got to stop.
While city leaders across the Piedmont Triad are calling it a panhandling pandemic, something that's been going on for quite some time. And now more drivers are seeing signs like this one here of people asking for help. But they tell me they want to do more than just give $1 or $2 out the window. They want to actually do something that's going to make a difference so people can finally ditch these signs.
I find it very annoying that they're at every exit.
But I roll down my window and have a conversation with them.
I sometimes lock my doors. I don't make eye contact.
There are no prerequisites for this job. All you need is a marker, some cardboard, and an idea for a slogan to really sell your story.
Make your best money in the rain.
Really?
Because people see you standing in the rain, yes, and
they figure that you really need it bad if you're standing in the rain.
But who are these people behind the signs?
Anything helps, you know, that's how the sign works, anything at all.
For 6 days a week, David Green makes this walk, this daily hustle.
I've been doing this for like almost 10 years now.
It's his version of work.
It really helps out, yeah, it really does.
Panhandling.
Thank you. If I didn't have this, I would starve.
Because after he was caught stealing, he's a convicted thief, and it's hard to get a job.
I'm actually on the corner making the money myself. I feel better about myself because I'm doing it honestly for once.
So he comes here.
Thank you very much.
And begs for anything you can spare.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
This has become an issue. I hear it on a regular every day. I've seen the emails come in on it. I go to community meetings, and that's one of the first questions they ask me. What are we going to do about the panhandling?
Greensboro Councilmember Sharon Hightower says now is the time to get the conversation started.
How are we going to get panhandling under control?
In Winston-Salem, panhandling is illegal unless you have a license. But right now in Greensboro, anyone can do it.
Panhandling really is rampant in areas throughout our entire community. Trash is being left behind. Actually, in some cases, furniture is being left behind as they go back the next day. So I would certainly agree with you that we need to look at this, and we also need to look at it from both perspectives.
It's often said the best way to understand someone,
There's usually a panhandler over there.
is to put yourself in their shoes. So that's exactly what I'm doing, panhandling myself. I won't lie if I'm confronted or lie with my sign. I'll donate it all to homeless services here in our area. First realization is this isn't very safe or comfortable, but today I quickly realized just how generous our community is.
Thank you so much. Why did you want to give?
I got a heart, I just saw you standing out here, and I just figured, maybe even if it's just a couple dollars, if everybody gives $1 or $2.
The most surprising takeaway was the takeaway itself. I made $60 in just 2 hours. Now that's not always the case for panhandlers. Many of them tell me they make about $30 in 4 hours. That's $7.50 an hour. And for 40 hours a week, that's $300. Times that by 52 weeks a year, that works out to $15,600 a year tax-free. That's roughly $2,600 more than you can make working a minimum wage job.
It doesn't surprise me. I think obviously that's one of the reasons it's lucrative. It's a quick way to get some cash in your pocket. What it is not is sustainable.
Brian Hahn, Executive Director of Partners Ending Homelessness, says they work firsthand on the streets of Greensboro to get people out of these situations.
We really do want to help folks that sincerely want to get out of that situation and, be not only housed, but, healthy, stable, and a contributing member of the community.
But Hahn says it's going to take more than $1 here and there.
Throw a few bucks out the window, we feel better. That person just made $30 an hour and life goes on. However, that's a Band-Aid.
So what is the solution?
That's what I'm interested in. How can we as a community, how can we as a network collaborate with all of our folks, from providers, public officials, even the private sector, in the business community, the faith community, they all can play a role to try to address some of these bigger challenges.
That's why he's hoping council members like Hightower and others will take the leadership to make it happen, helping others like Green in the community. Now, Councilmember Hightower tells me she plans to suggest to the City Council that we create a panhandling task force to combat these issues, but also connect people to the right resources. But she says this is just a start. So much more needs to be done in our communities to help those who are in need. Reporting here in the Triad, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News.
Okay, Chris, thanks so much for that. COVID-19 cases have largely dropped in the state, and so are some restrictions. But one that remains is a protection law for nursing homes. More than 37 states did this at the start of the pandemic as a way to protect nursing homes from being sued if someone caught COVID. But instead, that has now opened a blanket immunity for almost everything. ABC 45's Cassie Schirm has more on how the statute is impacting seniors.
That's right, Camilla. I've been working on this story for 3 months now, and I've spoken to dozens of family members who tell me they've lost loved ones due to neglect in nursing homes like this one back behind me here. Now, they all have different stories, some because they were over-medicated, while others had complete lack of care, with some of the facility residents sitting in their own waste for days. Now, because of this immunity law that's put by the state, no one's being held liable for what's going on in the doors of these nursing homes. So some of the family members have reached out to lawmakers looking for help and change, but they tell me they've gotten little to no response, and that's why they say they reached out to me.
If it was us, he would be fighting for us. I mean, he was a fighter. He was independent. He always did things the right way.
Lauren Cox and Kristen Goforth are talking about their father, Rick Goforth.
He was a hard worker and he had a great sense of humor. He was very funny.
You're the man.
You're the man. I love you.
The family-loving 75-year-old man was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in August of 2020. Then one night, he wandered off.
Freezing cold, pouring down rain, and he left. And so, of course, we get in the car, and he's on the phone with us as he's walking because he's scared.
They knew he needed more care, so they took him to Carriage House Nursing Home in April of 2021. And that's when the daughters say their nightmares started.
It makes you sick on your stomach. It is sickening.
In just 10 days, they say Goforth went from walking 2 miles a day and dressing himself to being wheelchair-bound with a broken hand.
Almost every time we see him, he can't really talk anymore.
Yes.
He's almost drunk.
It's almost like he's drunk.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he's slurring. Like you can't really understand what he's saying. We keep asking, like, is he being over-medicated?
A total of 28 days in this facility. His family was shocked to see him like this picture to the right.
He is sitting in a wheelchair that's too small with no shoes on. His head is laid on a table. And that's when Sandy said, we need to call 911. And they said, well, they're not going to come for him.
She called for help and their dad was rushed to the ICU.
That night is when they diagnosed him with severe malnutrition, acute renal failure, severe dehydration, and electrolytes all over the board, and MRSA.
Days later, he passed in hospice, leaving his loved ones feeling guilty.
I think it just happened so quickly that we didn't know what to do and how to go about doing it.
And we didn't have the right help from the facility.
Mm-hmm. Which you feel pretty bad that you did it.
After his death, the Department of Health investigated.
It's a pretty disturbing report.
This massive 102-page report found at least 3 residents, including Goforth, were not properly supervised or cared for under federal and state regulations. It outlines how Goforth had a broken wrist, swollen finger, and a hand that turned purple. The report stopped short of blaming the facility for Goforth's death.
When the daughters called us saying, what can we do about this? This seems unjust and we want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else in that facility. I had to tell them, I'm sorry, there's this immunity law.
Elizabeth Todd, a lawyer at James Scott Farron, says this is an issue she has dealt with for the past 2 years. The immunity law was put into the large COVID Recovery Act passed unanimously by the General Assembly and signed by the governor back in 2020. It was intentionally meant to protect long-term care facilities from lawsuits arising from COVID deaths, but opponents say it's being interpreted differently.
And we probably have 40 different cases that of truly horrifying abuse and neglect. Not one of them has to do with COVID. But the industry says, and at least one trial judge now in North Carolina has agreed, that they enjoy complete blanket immunity for all injuries and all deaths in all healthcare settings going back to March of 2020. Unless the trial courts start agreeing with us, there is no justice.
Those of us that understood the law warned the legislature it was going too far.
When the law was first written, North Carolina Representative Billy Richardson called the provision a get-out-of-jail-free card for the nursing home industry.
We were fearful that they would use this as a way to understaff and so that and cut back on costs. And our intent wasn't to give them a broad brush immunity. It was to very specifically address the COVID situation, where a person can get sued for the transference of the disease. It wasn't to protect people from gross negligence like letting people freeze to death for being understaffed or overdosing someone with sodium. I mean, goodness gracious.
We took these concerns to Governor Cooper. And what can we do to protect them?
Well, first, we don't want to shield wrongdoers. This pandemic has been unprecedented, and it has required an unprecedented response. We know that there were new areas of medicine and other things that were going on that we needed to make sure that we could trust our healthcare professionals to get in and do. We look forward to working with the General Assembly as we go forward to put in more permanent laws to deal with this situation, and all of it is under review right now by our office.
When it comes to the immunity law, that could be changed if you were to end the emergency order. Have you thought about doing that?
Where there are provisions in the statutes as well on that issue. So yes, we are working toward getting to a place where we would end the emergency order. However, there are a lot of issues that we need to address, like vaccinations and health care and other flexibility that the order gives to them.
So as a representative, what can you do or other representatives do to change this?
What we need to do is do what we're doing right now. And this is why the press is so invaluable. We need to have this dialogue. And then we need to put legislation in, and I'll try to do that in the short session, rolling some of this back and clarifying it. My preference would be to drop the immunity altogether, but if that won't work, then we need to revise it.
But until something actually changes, the Go Forth family says they won't sleep easy knowing someone else could die due to neglect with no repercussions.
We're still trying to fight. It's not going to change. The law's not going to change for my dad. What is there, and what is done is done. However, if we can change it today so that one other person doesn't have to experience the stuff that we have gone through, then I feel like it's not a wasted cause.
Now, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services tell me they receive more than 1,000 complaints each year when it comes to nursing homes. Now, when they receive a complaint, what they do is they have surveyors go into these facilities here and check to see what's going on. If they do find any violations, they create a document like this one here, and the facility has 10 days to create a plan to fix those violations. Then a surveyor can come at any day or time to make sure they're actually following through with that plan. But if they aren't, then they could be fined or they could lose their Medicaid programming. Now, this is a developing story, and we're going to be keeping you guys up to date with the latest information here on air and online at abc45.com. Reporting here in Greensboro, I'm Cassie Schirm, ABC 45 News.
Now, ABC 45 News did reach out to Carriage House and was able to get a statement from them regarding Go Forth's death. They said, quote, although we do not comment on our current or past residents, we want to be clear that the safety and well-being of all of our residents is our top priority. Our dedicated personnel are well trained and committed to providing the highest quality of care, end quote.